Oh, Matt Paulson in his episode 15 of the Handy Homebrew Show, part of the Handy Homebrew major conglomerate.
Yeah.
Look, we even got a screen printing company now, too. And by company, I mean a couple of kids that I paid $12 to do these for us. Today, we're going to talk about an issue. You're brewing beer, you're bottling beer, you're carbon beer, you're making your own recipes, you're sending stuff in for competitions, you're getting good feedback. What we want to talk about today is we want to touch the tip of the iceberg in off flavors.
Off flavors.
What went wrong?
Right. Well, and maybe you can't always say what went wrong because some of these off flavors you might want.
Yes, there are specific types and styles of beer where if you download the BJCP guidelines, it says looking for X amount of ester or
Right.
clove because of a certain yeast strand or
Right.
Fermentation temperature like a Saison.
Exactly.
That's you're looking for those types of off flavors. But some beers, you don't want that in. And some
Exactly.
beers, you won't notice it because the beer is just so beefy itself.
Right. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to cover just a couple today.
A handful.
That,
You do a handful.
that we have actually had experience
Which
with.
seem to be kind of typical for first-time homebrewers.
Right.
Okay, so what are we talking
Right.
about first?
So the first one we're going to talk about is
Use your big boy words, Matt.
acetaldehyde.
Acetaldehyde. What is acetaldehyde?
Well, acetaldehyde is an actual something. I'm not sure
Yeah,
what
we
it,
don't know what it is.
What it is.
We're not acetaldehyde experts. We're just enthusiasts.
It's just enthusiasts, right? So this is the flavor that you get that smells like green apples,
It's kind of puckery.
tastes like green apples. It can smell like freshly cut pumpkin.
Oh, wow. That's very specific.
right.
But only in March.
Exactly.
Only in March.
So I'm looking at my little cheat sheet here.
right. We got
It's
notes.
actually a cheat sheet from. I got to give them credit
gotta
because this is BYO Network put this together.
oh, yeah. And
the Brew Your Own.
Yeah, we love that. I get their magazine all the time. Love it.
Right. So let's talk about how it forms.
Okay.
It forms by different yeast strains are more prone to form acetaldehyde than some other yeast strains.
Yes.
I'm not exactly sure which ones those are.
Well,
Probably something more along the lighter beer.
where you're going to notice it in there.
Right.
And some places you want that type of acetaldehyde property.
Right.
But
Right.
one thing that adds to that kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Multiplies it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Is temperature.
Yes.
Temperature. What about temperature?
Well, temperature can control it. Sometimes the too cold,
Okay, can't.
so your yeast isn't
kinda-
active enough.
It's not throwing those knockout punches. It's kind of
Right.
starting the job and not
Right.
finishing. Okay.
So some of the other common things that will attribute to this acetaldehyde is grain or yeast health.
Okay.
So if you're pitching an old yeast,
Do a starter.
check out our
Earlier episode.
podcast.
Oh, our podcast
from last week. We
Our
talked
yeast
about
podcast, yeah.
talk about yeast health. Another one can be your grain crush. If you're
If you're grinding instead of crushing.
exactly
So those Corona mills can lean. Now, I know guys that brew great beers with Corona mills because they're really good at setting
Sure.
their plates.
Sure.
But it's the grinding of the husk. We want the husk to work it like a filter.
right. So
in
you
our
want
beer.
it to stay as whole as you possibly
Okay,
can.
so we want to smush it through rollers, not crush it on a plate.
Right.
And don't take that to the bank because, like I said, I got buddies that use Coronas. And
Right.
they don't have this problem. This is a problem from a few things. Temperature. Then they did that. Then their water sparge temps were too high and pulled some tannins in that's going to extrapolate. It's a whole mess.
Right.
It's a whole mess.
And so also this flavor could come from just the beer being too young.
Yeah.
The yeast hasn't finished
Yes.
doing its job.
Yeah, you're not trying to kick it out the door too fast. You're letting it clean.
Right. Let it age a little bit. Let that yeast kind of clean up after itself.
Yeah. Just because it's fermented out doesn't mean yeast is done doing its job.
Right.
But like I said, there are some beers that benefit from that. Now, another one, and this is one that we don't get a lot of unless you're a real young brewer like I was one day, cardboard, like wet paper.
Yes.
And that comes from oxygenation of already fermented beer.
Right.
So here's how I discovered it. My beer fermented out. And when your beer is fermenting, your yeast is eating those sugars, simple and complex sugars, creating alcohol as a byproduct and giving off CO2. CO2 then pushes oxygen out of your fermenter. So there's no oxygen in there. If you ever pop the lid or breathe, it's kind of hard to breathe for a second.
Oh, it is. It's because that sting in the back of your nose.
And you're like, whoa, I can't breathe. It's pushing everything out.
Yeah.
Well, I had a slow fermentation, so I was like, I need more oxygen than wort. And you say, guys, you said earlier, you want to aerate wort. You do want to aerate wort. You need oxygen in the wort to aerate because yeast need it to start working.
Right.
You don't want oxygen while it's working.
Or after it's finished.
After it's done.
Yeah.
So you want oxygen. You want to aerate your wort on the transfer to your fermenter. Once you pitch that yeast, clap your lid, put in your bung, whatever it's going to be. Be done with it. I open the lid. I need to get some oxygen, right? That's why my yeast was slow. Right. So instead of just lightly waking my yeast back up like I've seen people do, I took a whisk, sanitized it, because I was like, I'm not going to be stupid. And I whipped the shit out of it. And I worked all this oxygen into it. And I was like, all right, and of course the yeast took back off.
Yeah.
Finished out. It was like, done. Perfect. I drank it, and it was like a wet cardboard box.
Oh, my gosh.
It was like... It was papery, it was wet, it was damp, it was not good at all, man. Cockroaches would have loved it, though.
Yeah.
It was a great thing. So, cardboard.
So, don't oxygenate your...
After it started fermentation.
Right, after it started. Another place that you can run into this, it may not be while you're doing your fermentation, but I've heard of guys saying, well, everything's done, so I transfer into my bottling bucket, and I splash that...
It just dumped hard.
Yeah. Or they say, well, I've got to mix that corn sugar in before I bottle.
Yeah.
So they get that spoon and then...
That's why you do a racking bucket instead with a slurry. It just mixes it on its own. It's so simple. Oxygen is a bad thing and this happens to commercial brewers as well.
It does.
They do. Yeah. They actually use oxygen-absorbing caps when capping beer. I use them when I send in beers for competitions. I don't even know if they don't make oxygen-absorbing caps anymore.
Probably not.
And I purge all of my bottles with CO2 for a couple seconds before filling with my last straw. Shout out to Northern Brewer or wherever I got it from. Big sponsor of this show.
Huge
just
sponsor.
To make sure, huge, just to make sure oxygen doesn't mix in. Now, we love movies. I love movies.
We do.
My favorite part about a movie is sitting down, getting my nice big soda, sitting in the middle, getting my popcorn out, and they say, do you want butter on your popcorn? And I say, hell yes.
Absolutely.
I'm an American.
Who eats popcorn without butter?
Nobody. But you know where I don't like butter?
In your beer?
In my effing beer. That is diacetyl. If your beer tastes slick and almost has and I've smelled the buttery aroma. That's how strong it is.
Yeah.
There's a byproduct left over in your wort called diacetyl. Now, diacetyl gives you your buttery, creamy, almost salt-like flavor to a beer. Yeah. That's not good.
It could also taste like a butterscotch candy.
Yes.
Without not the sweetness.
Yeah, not a toffee, but like a... It's not like an ESB where you're trying to go for a little bit of that natural toffiness from your yeast strain. It is a very strong, very prominent butter flavor. Now, what causes that?
So what causes that is it all goes back to your yeast again.
Yeast, baby, yeast.
So you'll probably notice this more in a lager than you will in ale.
Okay.
So what happens during the fermentation of a lager is that yeast,
it's a bottom fermenting
just sits on the bottom and just slowly gets at that
lower
sugar.
Temp.
Right.
It's not nearly as excited.
Right.
And it takes a while to get its job done.
Right.
The byproduct is this diacetyl.
Right. So the diacetyl is a byproduct of that yeast. So what you have to do is when your sugar conversion is finished, hit that temperature up, get those yeast excited again.
And they start to eat that.
And they'll eat that diacetyl and it goes...
What do we call that?
Absolutely.
It's a diacetyl rest.
Oh, diacetyl.
If you ever hear a term...
That's a trick question.
Somebody will be like, hey, did you do it? I threw that one in there. It's not on our notes. If somebody says, hey, did you do a diacetyl rest? What they're asking you is, did you crank up your temp a little bit to re-excite your lager yeast to help clean out your beer?
Right.
That's what it was doing. It was cleaning out your beer. If you take a lager or Pilsner off too soon and you don't let your... And we've done diacetyl rests 10 degrees more for a couple days. That's it. And that's all it'll take, and you won't notice any of that stuff. But like Matt said, it's a lagering beer that you're going to find that. So we talked about our green apple flavor, our cardboard flavor, our butter flavor. What's our last biggest one we got to talk about?
Well, I have one that...
Let's do it.
that some of the new brewers may get into.
Okay.
I'm kind of jumping off of what our plan was.
That's fine.
Here.
This is what we do. We adapt.
Right.
We're like we're like the yeast in a bottom fermenting lager. Which is the nicest thing that's ever been said about me.
The biggest off flavor I've ever experienced in a lot of my brews when I very first started out. Mm-hmm. I started out doing extract brews.
Okay.
And I could taste that tin can.
Metallic.
Oh my God, it's awful.
Metallic.
It's awful.
Now,
awful.
What causes a metallic? And now, it's not just the tin. You can get this off flavor in other things, too.
Right. There's not
other just from
causes.
extracts.
Right. So, for one thing, I was probably buying extract that was old.
Yep, sitting in that tin can.
And sitting in that tin can, and that tin can didn't have.
They do a lot of extracts in plastic jugs now. You see
That's right, yeah.
Kind of help protect against that.
Right.
So you can actually get it from a metallic surface. What else?
Right. Another one is, and we're probably going to get like 6,000 hate mails.
That's fine.
About this.
That's why we do this.
But it can actually come from using an aluminum pot.
Yes, I use an aluminum pot.
A lot of people use aluminum pots.
It's been oxidized though.
Right. So there's a few things you can do to your aluminum pots to
create an oxygenated coating to protect against leaching.
Right. One of those is you can put that pot in the oven for 250 degrees at 250 degrees for about 6 hours. That will create an oxidized layer on the inside.
And then don't go in there with steel wool when you clean.
No.
Just kind of wipe it out with a damp cloth.
Right. That's the biggest thing.
You want that coating.
Yeah.
It looks almost burnt. You want that coating.
Right. It'll almost turn black sometimes when you boil.
Yeah.
Don't scrub aluminum with
steel.
With like a stainless.
Tear right through it.
Yeah.
Absolutely tear right through it.
Just use a soft cloth and your PBW and you'll be good to go.
Yeah.
You can also get this from ceramic coated steel pots.
Okay.
So any kind of cracks or voids in the ceramic coating, it will pull that iron
through it
out of the
because it's coated because it's not stainless.
Right.
That's the reason for it. Another thing that when we talk about, sometimes it's your cleaner.
Yes.
You can get a little bit of a medicine-y metallic flavor if you didn't rinse off or you're using regular soaps when cleaning instead of PBW or an OxyClean based mixed. You're getting the fragrant, you're getting that slick, it's a cleaner. I used to get a couple metallic things. Before I ever had aluminum, I got a metallic flavor. Yeah. I was using dish soap to clean all my stuff and not rinsing it and wiping it well.
Right.
So
and what's the number one rule about soap and cleaners in homebrew? Don't use dish soap.
Oh yeah, don't use dish soap. That was another trick question. That's not on the notes.
That's not on the notes.
It's I
gotcha.
God dang it. Use PBW, use your OxyClean. Check out one of our first couple episodes about how to properly clean and then sanitize it. That will lead to it. So off flavors, okay? It's gonna happen to everybody.
Oh yeah.
I know professional brewers who use new equipment, they'll start something new and they'll go, because I didn't do X, Y, or Z, now I have an off flavor. And then they correct the process.
Right.
Dump the batch and get it fixed. Now, they're dumping money. We're dumping $40.
Yeah.
So make sure when you're doing your off flavors, go check out homebrewtalk.com. Come over to the forum at handyhomebrew.com and ask us about off flavors. Ask your fellow homebrewers. They are going to know. They've done it. We've done it. Yeah. Everybody's done it. I haven't had an off flavor in 10 batches. Doesn't mean I've made great beer.
I've got an off flavor right now.
What?
Yeah.
Shut it down.
Yeah. I have a keg of wheat beer that's so full of acetaldehyde.
Yeah. And now you know the steps to take to help ratify that.
Right.
So off flavor is going to happen. You want to narrow these down, and then you only want to get them when you want them. And there are times, and then we'll do a whole episode on esters and all that here coming up here. Yeah. So we're talking episode 15. We're talking off flavors. We're trying to fix your beer before it's even a problem. So check it out. Make sure you're listening to the podcast. We got to go record another podcast.
Yeah.
Continuing our topic today on what, Matt Paulson?
Off flavors.
Off flavors. We're going to talk about yeast health. We're going to talk about billions and off flavors and all the whole good thing. Share us, like us, do all that stuff. I'm ready to get out of here. Matt Paulson's ready to get out of here, but there's one more thing we got to do.
We got to do pints and picks.
We got to do pints and picks. Episode 15, we just talked off flavors. Now we're going to talk about beers that don't have off flavors.
Yes.
This is another local Kansas brewery.
Yeah.
Awesome guys. They're a blast to work with at all the festivals and stuff. Defiance Brewing Company out of Hayes,
Kansas. What we've got here is the Fuzzy Knuckles. It's an imperial stout brewed with cocoa nibs and coffee.
Cocoa nibs and coffee. This one has got some bite to it. So Matt Paulson,
10%.
10%. Pour us up a fuzzy nut. But before you open this, let me get in here real fast. Can I just say, as a student of the arts, I love when cans are just fun and funky like this.
Yeah.
That grabs my. When I'm buying a new beer, I will buy a beer based off of
what the can looks like.
Yeah, the cover
the
of the
label?
book. Yes.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but I'll do it. Now, we're going to drink a big beefy beer.
Yeah.
It's going to get at you. We're going to have a good time. But when I'm drinking a big imperial beer, a stout, something in the basement, I like to throw on a classic.
Yes.
We're talking classics here. We're talking Jurassic Park.
3D.
Now this is when they came out a couple years ago for the 3D. My wife took me for my birthday. I love Jurassic Park. This is like my generation's Jaws.
Yes.
When I was a kid, my dad said we're going to go see Jurassic Park. I said, an effing real dinosaur movie? That's not Land Before Time. Count me in.
Yes.
I love it. It's a fun movie. It's fast-paced. The graphics. I mean, this movie's over 20 years old.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
That was the remastered version, right? Blu-ray, 3D.
Yes, this is the 3D. This is the fancy class. This ain't the VHS Laserdisc.
I've seen this one.
Yeah. Oh, yes, you have seen
I have
this one.
seen
Now
this
it's
one.
been out for 20-some odd years, so he has.
Right.
So grab yourself, Jurassic Park. It doesn't have to be in 3D, guys. It's a good movie.
Oh, man.
If you haven't seen it, I don't know where you're living. Here we
That
go.
really smells good. You can smell the cocoa.
Wow. That's creamy. It's very creamy. A lot of body in there.
It does. It's got the heat, too.
They have to be. Oh, not as much as I thought.
But no,
though.
right.
I thought it'd be a lot.
with 10%.
I've had 10%. It's creamy. They got to be using some oatmeal in that body there. Or something.
Oh, yeah. It's thick. Thick and heavy.
It's like molasses. Mm-hmm. It's very coffee-y. I get a lot more coffee than a chocolate, but I get the chocolate.
Yeah. You
I
can
get the
smell
chocolate
the
smell,
yeah.
but I get the coffee flavor in the back of the tongue. That's a very rich beer. You get this with a nice big old fat cheeseburger, or like one of those cream cheese dips or something, dipping your pretzels and stuff in.
Oh, some good spicy hot wings.
Oh my God! You just cut right through. Oh, I can't believe how good this one. I've never actually had this one. This is great.
This is
good
awesome.
job, Defiance. We're gonna tag you in this video. This is a blast. So grab yourself Jurassic Park. Grab yourself a Fuzzy Knuckles by Defiance here in Hayes, Kansas. We gotta love our Kansas breweries.
Right.
Check us out, handyhomebrew.com. Make sure you like us, subscribe, reply, contact us. Let us know what you wanna know. We're gonna talk about what you wanna know. And remember, we're not beer experts.
Just beer enthusiasts.
We're beer enthusiasts. Drink up, Matt Paulson. Well, that'll get you drunk.